All right, Adam, I'm going to put you in the title in this as an ex-Rooster Teeth fan. I mean, do you think that's an accurate way to describe you?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Ex or former Rooster Teeth fan? Which one do you think sounds better?
Former seems a little nicer.
A little nicer.
So we'll go with that.
The reason I wanted to talk to you, I mean, aside from the fact that we've been best friends since, I don't know, we were 17, I think you're very representative of a lot of the people who have watched some of my bigger videos, like people who watched a lot of Achievement Hunter, a lot of Rooster Teeth, a lot of Funhouse, and then kind of fell off at some point. Do you think that kind of describes you?
I would say so, yeah. That sounds very similar to my experience.
Like, for context, what was the last new Rooster Teeth video that you hadn't seen before that you watched?
The last new Rooster Teeth video, I would have to say it had to have been a Let's Play. You know what? I did watch a lot of Rage Quits, I think, after I fell off. Even those are still coming out with Michael and Gavin.
I watched their, Play Pals. Is that the same thing, or is that different?
It's different, but I also did watch the Play Pals. Those are sort of Let's Plays, but with just Gavin and Michael. But sometimes, Michael would have Rage Quits, and then you'd have Gavin on with him. And, obviously there was a lot of screaming going on there.
Yeah. So those were the last new ones you watched. Do you ever go back now, say, and watch any Rooster Teeth, anything like that?
The only thing I actually do go back and watch is the Rooster Teeth theater modes. I'll actually, pay the subscription to go back and watch his videos. And, some of those are just, so funny. And I really love that sort of sitting down with, a bunch of guys watching a movie together and just razzing on it.
I didn't watch a lot of theater mode until you told me about it, but that's exactly what it is. It used to be behind the paywall, right?
Yes. And maybe it's not anymore. Maybe Yeah, no.
Last
now time I went back, it was paid walled.
Yeah, they've archived it all online. I don't think you can find it on YouTube, but it's on the Internet Archive right now. I'm really going to test you here. When's the last time you watched a Rooster Teeth video? Was it one of these shorts that you watched in preparation for this?
Definitely, I went back and watched these shorts that I picked out for this. So,
okay.
I guess you can say I watched a Rooster Teeth video today. So there you go.
There you go, man. So let me change the title. Current Rooster Teeth fan.
Little asterisk.
I want to say this too, and I don't want to get too much into your life, but I mean, is it fair to say? Can I say that you're a scientist?
Yeah, you could describe me as a scientist.
Yeah, so, I mean, I would describe you as probably the smartest person I know, but you are a scientist, so anybody listening, this is the scientifically correct top 5 Rooster Teeth shorts of all time, no debate, right?
The research has been done. It's been sent in for peer review, and we're waiting on it back. But yeah, this is the scientifically correct one.
I wonder if this is the peer review.
This is the peer review.
Oh, man. Well, generally,
you're the only peer.
Well, generally my comments are pretty positive. I do get a lot of comments from people who think I don't watch anything other than Rooster Teeth ever. That's not completely true, right? I mean, you've seen me watch something else at some point.
I'm sure that's not true. I can't think of anything, but
okay.
It's got to not be true.
I think I watched an Avengers movie at some point in there.
Oh, okay, yeah. Marvel, that's better.
So here's what we're going to do. We both picked 5 shorts, our top 5. Now, they are going to be slightly older, I guess definitely with you, but for me too. I think the best way to do it is we both start at our number 5 and work our way down, and we'll kind of talk about each one, and then, if anybody listening thinks we're getting it completely wrong or kind of identifies with it, I definitely would love to know if they remember something from a particular one, because I know in every single one in my list, and I'm sure the ones in yours, we would quote a line from each one of those shorts almost on a daily basis, 10 years ago, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's sort of, what I kind of base the list on myself is how quotable it might have been, or, something along the line. But we would just, in our everyday life, just be saying something that was on a Rooster Teeth short.
Well, I mean, it got to the point in my last video I talked about how Will, our roommate, who I don't think watched a Rooster Teeth video ever, unless I maybe drunkenly forced him to sit down and watch one. But I mean, he still quotes Rooster Teeth to us today.
Oh yeah, we definitely infected his brain with Rooster Teeth sayings, and he doesn't know absolutely anything at all about.
He has no reference at all. I guess we'll start with you. What is your number 5?
Okay, so for my number 5, I chose Stand Alone.
Oh.
So just for some context, that's the one where Bernie calls into the office. He's got an emergency, he can't come in, and he sends in a replacement, and that replacement turns out to be it.
Yeah, Gus.
Gus.
Yeah.
You can't expect me to get the names right.
Let's say that's. Hey, look, you have to back up the Ex-Rooster Teeth part of this.
Okay.
That's the whole Adam, that's the whole gimmick of the video.
He calls in, and it turns out his replacement is a cardboard cut of himself that all the other employees basically come enamored with, and they sort of have this love song montage. And I think this one really, that's the thing. I really like the song, and like unironically, I downloaded this song, and I would play it, just listen to it on my MP3 player or whatever, because I actually really enjoyed the song, and obviously it was very funny too.
Well, my favorite part from that short is actually, and it's a really quick moment, and this is why I want to see like in the comments what from these shorts people identify with. There's a moment in the short where Jeff walks up and starts talking to Brandon, who is kind of like hiding the fact that, or trying to hide the fact that Gus is a cardboard cutout. And Joel's like, "Wait, what's going on?" And Jeff's like, "Oh, he's keeping secrets." And Joel says, "Oh man, keeping secrets isn't cool." And then he looks at Jeff, who has his arms crossed. And then Joel, to look cool like Jeff, just slowly crosses his arms and goes, "Keeping secrets is not cool." And it's just this little thing. He just wants to be like, I don't know. And the whole short itself, it's one of my favorite things about their shorts. It's completely ludicrous and makes no sense, but yet it's still funny.
Right. It's very good concept. And, obviously the twist at the end is that he was making cardboard cutouts of those three guys to, he plays like strip poker with them. And also the really funny part is he actually loses strip poker to a bunch of cardboard cutouts.
Well, and this is the fun part that, I'm sure I've told you this at some point. I watched the Rooster Teeth podcast a ton, and you never really did, right?
No, we talk about this a lot, but I am just not a podcast person.
Right.
But I think you've shown me a lot of the Rooster Teeth podcast. And if I were to watch podcasts, I might give it a try.
Well, and they talk about a lot of the shorts and stuff behind them. But when Gus first met his wife's father, who was a very strict South Korean man, his wife, the first thing she showed him to show him that like, oh no, my husband's famous, is that short. And so his first interpretation of what Gus does as a job is that short, which...
Oh, that's great.
Hilarious. My number 5, it's really just for a couple quotes, but it's many years ago. For context, that's the one where they are actually, it looks like they're moving into their office on Congress. The whole bit is that it takes place at some point between like 1995 and 2004. And like Jeff has like, they've wrapped Jeff's arms in like green screen so he doesn't have tattoos yet. It's full of really good quotes. I think my favorite one that I know you've heard me say a bunch, "Let's get ambitious, like yahoo.com levels of ambitious." I don't know what it is. Do you remember that one?
I think I definitely remember watching that one, but definitely not recently. They make fun of yahoo.com a lot, I think, throughout some of those, some of their content.
They do. I mean, the fact that Yahoo just kept dumping billions of dollars to try to like acquire anything that was remotely popular on the internet. That's a good one, and it's really just my favorite. I love yahoo.com levels of ambitious. So that's why it's my number 5. I couldn't put it any higher. What's your number 4?
Okay, so my number 4 is Secret Door.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. I've always really liked Gavin, and I think that was, one of the first things Gavin was in, and as far as shorts go, I'm not sure. But I think he did a good job.
It was Gavin's, I think it was his very first short.
Okay, wow. But also just a really great concept. As far as quotability goes, I wouldn't really say I quote this a lot, but it's just an extremely funny line where, obviously, so again, for context, Gavin's really suspicious of this closed door in the office.
Something we've all like kind of experienced at a workplace, right? Like you have a door that just nobody ever talks about.
Right. And then he starts pushing a little, and he gets a lot of pushback from like Gus, Bernie, and Jeff saying, "Hey, you don't need to be asking about that door." And he's like, "What do you even think is back there?" And he finally, I think, like sneaks in at night, and he opens the door, and it's full of clones of him. And somehow, Gus, Bernie, Jeff all show up right then when he figures it out, and sort of explain to him, "Yeah, we've been cloning you, and we put all, we keep messing up, and we put all the clones in there." Sorry, one of the funniest lines is Gus, where he responds to Gavin, and he says, "Gavin, it's just a closed door. What? They don't have those in Britain?"
Don't they have those in Britain? That's a great one. A great touch in that one too is just having Ben also being in the room with the clones.
And then Yeah, you go, that's ridiculous. Ben is from Nottinghamshire, and I'm from South Scottoon. It's like, and they're like, yeah, I don't hear the difference.
Yeah, like out of here. And then they're like, oh, we need to find the original, and then they grab Ben. Is the original Gavin.
Yes.
Oh,
one
man.
little thing I caught when I went and rewatched this was as they are shoving him in, they had previously mentioned like a lot of times, Gavin, I can't understand you. I think you're just saying Lord of the Rings quotes, and then as they're shoving him into the closet, he just out of nowhere goes Gandalf as they're putting him in.
Oh man, I think Jeff even says like ha 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 Mordor. It's like, oh man, that's a good one. Now my number 4. Boy, this is gonna be a deep cut. Again, I tried to go for ones that I think you'd know too, but Jump. Do you remember that one?
Okay, maybe give a little context.
So yeah, the context for this one is Bernie just says like, hey, we're gonna clean up, and they all start cleaning up. And then they're just cleaning up the office, and then they all jump to high five each other, but they get frozen in midair.
Okay.
Do you remember that one? And,
no.
Oh yeah. So they jump, they get frozen in midair, and then Chris, Bernie, and Brandon. Chris starts to panic, and they're like, "Well, it's fine. The cleaning people will be here in a few hours." And Chris is like, "What if we don't make it that long?" It's like, "Well, why wouldn't we make it that long?" And he ends up losing it and pulling out a gun and killing both of them.
Oh my god!
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's really stupid, but something about Chris just panicking while they're all sitting there, and the first thing he says is he's really happy, and he goes, "Oh my god, I'm flying!" But again, they're just standing in one spot. Bernie's just like, "You're not flying. You're just in one spot." Oh man, what do you got?
Okay, my number 3.
Yeah,
So my number 3 is Random Mandatory.
probably their most famous short.
Right, and I think I've actually, this one sort of, when it was first made, sort of escaped and got onto other platforms, like you're saying, and so a lot of people who weren't familiar with Rooster Teeth actually saw this one, and really not knowing who they were, but still, liking the short. I think it was even on Tosh.0.
That's where it kind of blew up, and the funny story about that, again from the podcast, is that they reached out to Rooster Teeth, asked for permission to use the video, but then, and I didn't know this, but it was Tosh.0's viewer video section. So they say their viewer submitted video. So then they were like, it was like we sent it in hoping we'd get on Tosh.0, but it's like we didn't care about Tosh.0. And then they were like, oh yeah, these guys really wanted to be on our show. But can you kind of set that one up if someone hasn't seen it?
Bernie has called Jeff in for a random mandatory meeting based on a drug test that he took, and really it just goes from there. Where Jeff...
I mean, the best line from that out the gate is we're here to talk about your drug test. Like, oh, how'd I do? It's like, we're about to have a meeting about it, so probably not well.
That was going to be one of my favorite lines from that one. So classic, and I don't know, just so cleverly written. I don't know, it's great. And so yeah, he apparently, instead of submitting urine for the test, he submits Gatorade, and it's not even yellow Gatorade, it's blue Gatorade. And he's like, I don't really see the problem with this. There's no drugs in there. And Bernie's like, well, there's a lot of sugar, and our insurance is saying that you have something called super diabetes. Does that come in more sick days?
And then the other great line is Jeff goes, well, how are my electrolytes? And Bernie's like, well, admittedly, those were really good.
Just the sort of defeat and having to go, well, yeah, actually, those were pretty good. I do want to point out and I'll say this throughout all of them probably, is I think Bernie gives a lot of the best deliveries.
Yeah, I think he was the one writing most
in those
of them.
shorts. That makes sense. But he seems to get a lot of those really good, sometimes quick lines that are, like you're saying, almost really absurd and a little bit stupid, but sometimes still just conversational.
I think it's actually kind of hard too, because it's hard to show people who don't know Rooster Teeth or who haven't seen other Rooster Teeth shorts, because it's so absurd. So it's you don't get it sometimes, because you're like, I don't what's right. Because the continuity doesn't quite line up, because yes, if you break it down why is he talking about the electrolytes? He knows it's Gatorade. It's but that's kind of the joke. It's he's just not thinking that far ahead.
It's almost important that you know who the actual people are.
That's true.
And so you have that really big contrast of, man, they're obviously acting very stupid in this.
Down to my top 3. These were a battle, which one would go where. But for my number 3, I picked the recording session. That is the first, I guess, real Rooster Teeth short. That was the one with Shannon, who was in Les Miserables and Breaking Bad. where he goes back in time. Do you remember that one?
Yes, I remember that one.
So to kind of set that one up, he is recording lines for Washington for Red versus Blue, and he gets tired, and he gives a line that I know you remember that we quote all the time. He's tired, and Bernie and Jeff are like, oh, well, if you're tired, he's doing a show downstairs. Like, why don't you just go take a nap on our couch? And Shannon says, oh, man, like, that's really cool. Are you guys sure? And then this really eerie music comes in, and Bernie just goes, why wouldn't we be sure? And then when he wakes up, he is in a ice bath that they are filling with ice because their plan is to send him into the future in order to invest in companies like Apple, Google, and whoever made email.
That's such a great one. And it probably almost made my list. Like you said, quotability. I can't even count on, if I had 10 people's fingers and toes, how many times we've said, why wouldn't we be sure?
Why wouldn't we be sure?
Like,
I say it all one thing I say all the time that's like a half quote. I do a few little things where I'm testing to see if other people may know Rooster Teeth. Basically, the tests always fail. But one of my favorite lines from this is when Bernie says, and here's the thing, you're going to need to find me in the future. But Americans are getting more and more diverse every day. So the future version of me probably won't look like me. And he holds up a picture of Tiger Woods because that's like his idea of diversity. And so he just thinks he's going to look like Tiger Woods in the future. Did you ever see the sequel to that one?
So I did know that there was a sequel, but I don't think I've actually gone back and watched the sequel to it. But doesn't he come back and basically try to get his revenge?
Yeah, well, he comes back, like the short starts about something else, and then he comes back from the future. He said he's been sent back because the birth rate has plummeted. The women, like, nobody's fertile anymore, and they need to have children. So they need Bernie and Jeff to get back in the time machine and go to the future to procreate with a bunch of women. And Bernie's like, wait, and they all look like Tiger Woods? And he's like, yes. And they're like, all right, we'll do it. But then you find out that Shannon, as he's boarding them back up in the box, that he was just sent to Alaska because they just sent him to Alaska to keep him cold, where he then got out and then came back with the box. So
that's good.
But yeah, no, I mean, definitely one of our most quoted things was the "Why wouldn't we be sure?" That's a great one. All right, what's your number two?
Number two is going to be, and I think a lot of people will, agree with me on this one, Prank King.
Oh, that's speaking of quotes.
Exactly.
Go ahead and set that one up.
So I think we start out with Matt and I think Carrie, sort of, but really just Matt pranking Gus by, putting a very obvious, easy to see pizza on his chair, and he sits down on top of it. They're laughing at him. Gus like, okay, well, you want a prank war? You're messing with the Prank King. I think he starts out by handing him a $5 bill and going, this is my accomplice. And so, Gus is doing all these like really nice things for Matt. Obviously not really understanding that pranks are supposed to be kind of mean-spirited. And
he washes his car.
He gets him a new laptop. And
tickets for the big play.
Tickets for the play, yes, that was very important. And I think Matt has a little sit down and is like, you aren't pranking me right now. It's like, oh, all right, well, I got you. And then I think finally Matt comes into the office and he's accosted by two Secret Service agents played by Bernie and Joel. Basically accuse him of trying to murder the President of the United States. That's
Joel's best line delivery.
Delivery. And then you get to sort of, it all gets put back together that, actually Gus was setting all this up. The tickets were to the play that the president was at. He had like searches on the computer like, I'm going to kill the president of the United States.
It was, I think the searches were guns that kill the president of the United States. And then, I'm going to kill the president of the United States at a play we're both attending.
Yeah. And then, fills up his car with gas and supplies, which I guess are the guns. And so, that's just, very quotable.
I love when Bernie's like, you could call us the Hardy Boys because we're so hard on naughty little boys. And Joel just goes, hard boys.
Boys. And Mike goes, okay, that's kind of weird. And Bernie goes, nah, you made it weird.
No, you made it weird. To add my little extra bit of RT lore here. They actually, well, no, you know this because we watched, I don't know if you remember it, but we watched 10 Little Roosters together and proceeded to get the answers wrong every single week.
Right. Well, it really wasn't fair, but okay.
I mean, dude, it's upon rewatch, it was so obvious, but I mean, everything is, I guess, on rewatch.
Right.
But when Bernie reprised his role as, a Boston cop, I remember being really hyped because that was one of my favorite shorts of all time. That Prank King is so funny. Now, quotable, I'm down to number 2, which is Gary Busey.
Definitely.
It's a really bizarre one that is, it features John Graham, actually the Halo series, Arby and the Chief. Did you ever watch that?
No, I don't think so.
I never did either. I know it was super popular. I think he did it. It wasn't like with Machinima. He did it with like toys.
Okay.
I don't know anything about it other than that, but I know it got really popular. And he flew out to Austin and he was in this short with him and he shows up and the whole thing is that like Joel answers the door of the office and he's like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see you. And he's like, oh yeah, well, why? I didn't know people would be so excited to see me. He's like, oh yeah, I mean, Point Break, what a movie. It's like, what? It's like, yeah. And for some reason, again, the absurdity thing is that they all just think he's Gary Busey. And there's no reason to think that he's Gary Busey whatsoever.
Doesn't look anything like him.
Anything like him, doesn't sound like him. He's probably 40 years younger than Gary Busey at that point.
And why are they such fans of Gary Busey?
And we get up to they go upstairs. They're having him sign. I think he actually signs Jeff's Point Break DVD, and then they. I mean, I don't want to steal all the quote lines, but I love when he kind of loses his mind because he's like, "Hey, I'm not Gary Busey. Stop calling me that." And then Brandon just goes, "Gary Busey's crazy."
No, I mean, obviously, the end where it's like, wait a minute, this guy's not Gary Busey. It's Nick Nolte. Get out of here, Nick Nolte.
And I mean, here's the thing. Brandon delivers maybe the best line in a Rooster Teeth short after that. At least in my opinion. They're all yelling at him to leave because they've realized that he's Nick Nolte and not Gary Busey. And with the most honest frustration I've ever seen in a Rooster Teeth short, Brandon just goes, why does this keep happening?
Wait, you're exactly right. He delivered it perfectly, and then it's one of those things is like, what do you mean this keeps happening?
It's like clearly, again, the absurdity. Rooster Teeth is inviting people who they just assume is Gary Busey, and then they end up thinking it's Nick Nolte. And of course they're so angry because Nick Nolte keeps showing up.
Yep.
Man, and again, listening to the podcast at the time, Bernie was talking on the podcast about how he always confuses Nick Nolte and Gary Busey. A problem, by the way, that I've never had. But apparently it's something that a lot of people, I don't know, at least they thought would identify with. And it's funny because I don't know if anybody really thinks that. Maybe just him.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see if other people actually have that problem, but I don't think I've ever confused those two. And nowadays you wouldn't even be, you would struggle to find someone who even knew who they were.
See, we also have to be careful. I want to do a video about fandoms and like fandom tropes. We're talking about two very old actors, one of which who is in terrible health. If they pass away, all of a sudden it becomes a curse. So
right.
I think we got to be careful. Like Achievement Hunter would talk about somebody and then a year and a half later they would pass away. Like Tom Clancy, I think was one of them. And everyone's like, wow, Achievement Hunter's cursed. It's like, I don't know, man, whatever.
Yeah, we'll have to see if we have that power.
We have to wield it responsibly.
We have to wield it responsibly.
Okay, so what is your number one? Or wait, do you have an honorable mention? Or do you want to jump straight into number one?
I think you actually picked up on my honorable mentions. The recording session, definitely, and then the Gary Busey one. I think those are probably going to be my honorable mentions. Oh, and maybe, I don't know if you're Catch.
That's so funny that you said that. I was going to say, if you don't have one, I'm going to say Catch because so many people comment that their favorite Rooster Teeth video ever was Catch.
Really?
Yeah. Tons of people. Which, like, I thought it was funny. It just wasn't, like, it doesn't come to mind as, like, the top 10.
It's not as, like, I don't consider it, like, as classic as these other ones, Yeah. But, it was funny. But, I'll say my number one here. Office Tour.
Easy
He's
pick.
easy number
Easy
one. I
pick.
think if you're someone like me who is stuck in the past of Rooster Teeth, hasn't been able to, accept that things have changed and all that.
If you use the
Office
word
Tour is going to be your number
golden
one.
years whenever you refer to Rooster Teeth.
So for anyone that might not know, set the stage. It's sort of set up as like this little behind the scenes production video with Bernie sort of leading a small maybe camera crew or documentary crew. Just and which office is this?
That's the Ralph Ablonato one, 636.
Okay, all right. I think you actually showed me that one.
Yeah, I drove you by that one.
Okay, very cool. But he's showing that office, doing a tour of the office. And it's just, it's absurd. He's bad at it. Everyone there seems to sort of hate him. I believe, he goes into Gus's office first, and Gus is, arguing with a homeless guy that he was supposed to be put on the first of the month, not the second, not the third. And then he does a quick cut, and Bernie's like rubbing his hands. He's like, you don't think that guy was sick, dude?
He said, the homeless guy's like, I got to get my sick wife to the hospital. And he's just walking towards Bernie, and if you go back and watch it, Bernie's holding out his hand to keep him away, and then when it cuts, like, you just assume that, like, his hand, like, grazed him, so he's got to, like, wipe his hands off.
He goes into the Achievement Hunter office, which it looks like it's actually just Jeff and Michael with, like, 2 TVs.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And so that must have been, like, very early.
It's maybe Jeff and Jack?
It could have been Jack. It was just the back of the second person's head. But basically, Jeff's just like, hey, get the fuck out of here. He goes into the sort of like big atrium area or whatever, talks to Griffin, who I think he said she did the Rooster Teeth comic, and then also made all the props. And then one of the best quotable things I think
I was going to let you take it.
He walks up to the green screen. He's like, and this is our green screen. Unfortunately, we couldn't afford a blue screen, but we can make it blue with the power of... movie magic. And there's a delay, and then the screen turns blue, and then obviously his face turns blue.
The key is all messed up because the camera's too far back, so his face turns blue. Oh man, it's and it's funny too. It's hard, and like, look, I don't know anything about making videos or. Like, I'm struggling on a day-by-day basis here with the videos I'm making. So, like, it's really hard to, I think, make a video that shows how bad you are at making a video. It's like They know how to do all those tricks because it's so perfect all the way through. And, like, even, like, when he's walking, the first shot is when he's just walking into the office and he trips and he just goes fuck but he doesn't cut the edit quick enough, so it's just like he just leaves that part in.
It's great. It just sort of sets the tone for the whole short.
Can I say something controversial? I'll allow it. I think the short falls off a little bit with the I love it. I agree it's the number one, but I think it falls off a little bit towards the end. It kind of goes on with the
I was gonna say actually, so yes, I think the last really funny part of it is when he's showing like the motion capture thing, and then the guy gets hurt and he's like, call 911. There are speed dial 2, which is just a great line.
But it's great too. What's speed dial 1?
You're right. And it may even be funnier because I actually don't exactly know how speed dial 2 is, but you might have to push more buttons than just 911 to get to a speed dial 2. Maybe someone can correct me on that.
No, they can't, because I don't think speed dialing exists anymore.
Yeah, you're right.
It's like saying like, hey, how did pagers work?
It's lost to the annals of time.
It's lost to time.
And then he's just like, do you think he has a case? I think he was drunk. But yeah, I think
he says, I'm
after
fairly
that, you're right.
He was drunk.
I'm fairly certain he was drunk. It definitely falls off after that and I think it's because, and I actually, going back and watching this, I didn't realize it's almost like word for word the Christian Bale rant.
No, it's it starts as the Christian Bale rant and then ends as the Bill O'Reilly rant from like 2003.
Yes,
yeah, because Christian Bale says
Matt stop doing something.
Yeah, because Christian Bale says, like, do I come to where you work and like mess with your lights? Like, no, like you. I mean, we're talking about stuff that if you're under the age of like 25, you don't know what this is, but they were very important. This is back when things would happen and we'd talk about them for months. I guess the closest thing to that recently would be like the Will Smith slap that we all got really into.
That
for
was
like
a long time ago, actually.
Yeah, it was like 3 or 4 years ago. But yeah, then the Bill O'Reilly rant where he's like, it says sequence. What does that even mean? Like, again, funny rant. It kind of fell off at that point.
Right.
But of course, it does have the great line of, what do you, like, do I come to where you work and knock the dicks out of my mouth? No. So why are you trying to knock the dicks out of mine?
Specifically his dick out of your mouth.
Specifically his dick out of your mouth. Oh man, so here's the thing. I gotta be honest. I knew you were gonna pick that one, and I didn't want to dump Rooster Teeth shorts lore on you. But if anybody's listening and they really like Rooster Teeth lore, I have a 2-hour video where I do Rooster Teeth lore. Surprisingly, a few people have watched it, and I can see a few people who have watched it more than once. So I hope you guys are doing okay, because boy. But I went with one that is a classic for me. It's definitely one that I've probably gone back to the most, and I actually got to talk to the star of the short about it, but it's Murder for Hire. This is the short where Chris is being contracted to kill a man's wife, and he has the guy wants to contract Chris to kill his wife. Chris is dressed up as a gangster. He wants an interview instead of just hiring a guy to kill his wife. So Chris puts together a trifold science fair poster board of why he would be good for killing the wife. Do you remember this one?
Yes, I do remember this one.
And it's there's 3 big quotes from it that I love. The first one, he just has a little sticker that says 1 in 3 marriages end in divorce or murder. So and the guy talking to him says, well, of that 33%, how much is divorce and how much is murder? And Chris looks at it and goes, well, 1 in 3. And then, of course, when he's going through the different plans with him that he can use to kill his wife, he gets to plan D, which is, again, great line delivery by Chris. No air. He says, what? He says, you can't breathe if there's no air. It's like, well, I understand how that works. But well, and he has a pie chart that isn't labeled, but it turns out it's not a real pie chart. It is a circle with a little piece of a pie, but that piece of the pie is actually a knife going into a head. It's just an illustration of a murder. And then I think my favorite part of the whole thing though is when he proposes the idea of a suicide, like a staged suicide, to which, the guy hiring him says, like, how are you gonna like stage a suicide without any signs of struggle? He says, I'm gonna hang her. He says, well, how are you gonna stage a suicide without a signs of struggle? He's like, rope. Okay. He says, okay, well, he's like, well, what about a note? Are you going to leave a note? He's like, oh yeah. He's like, you're going to write a note that my wife would write? He's like, yeah, I'll just put, I'm sad. I'm wife. I'm wife. And then he ends it so great, and he's like, well, look, what plan would you use to kill your wife? And Chris just deadpan goes, well, I wouldn't kill my wife. He's like, okay, that's fair. That's fair. But I actually asked Chris about that one, and he was more concerned with my shirt, which he designed. The way I met him was at RTX at this little shop. He was standing in the corner with his hands in his pockets, just like shifting his weight from one side, like from one leg to the other, like looking around. And then we just walked up, and I told him, hey, I'm a huge fan of the shorts you've been in. And obviously, he talks to fans all the time. But I'm like, hey, I'm a huge fan of the shorts. My favorite short with you is actually the Murder for Hire short. And he's like, oh yeah? Like, he was confused by it. And I was like, yeah, do you have a favorite short that like you've been in or that you go back and watch? And he goes, no. But I designed that shirt that you're wearing. And I just looked down, and me and my fiance were both wearing the same shirt. And he's like, yeah, I designed that. I was like, oh, well, that's really cool. And he was way more interested in the fact that he designed that shirt than the shorts. So, I hope
that's
these
kind of
guys,
hilarious.
It's like I feel like that's a pretty solid list of both of them.
Yeah, and I'll say this, I don't think any of mine had Chris in them, probably because they were much older. But I actually, like you were saying, I really like Chris and his line delivery. I think that sort of just innate awkwardness and how he does things is great. And I remember specifically we used to watch, what was it, the Social Experiment show with him.
Social Disorder, absolutely.
Social Disorder.
Him and Aaron Marquis.
Him and Aaron, just amazing.
Dude,
He
what a
was
good
definitely one of my favorites there. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
That actually brings me to, we're kind of in our epilogue here, but I would love to do more videos with you. I think people are going to like this. The ones that watch it, I swear I'm going to try to do a good job coming up with a thumbnail and a good title. I don't know. Did you see the thumbnail and the title of my last video?
I don't think I did.
It's okay if you say no. No, it's
no. I'm sorry. Watch your videos? That's weird.
Well, no. What happened was, Bernie puts out a podcast and he's like, "Hey, I want to know from the fans what kind of merch that they want." So maybe I had a few White Claws. I don't know, but I'm like, well, I got to make this right now. So I made this video in like 45 minutes, and I was actually really proud of how quick I made it. The problem was I uploaded it, and I was going to post it on a few different subreddits. So I posted the subreddit, like the title I was going to use on the subreddit, which was very long. I posted that, unfortunately, as the YouTube video title, just because I was copy and pasting. So the video comes out, and within 10 minutes, I'm like, oh man, that title's terrible. Like, that doesn't work for YouTube. It works on a subreddit where you know what you're there for. So I changed the title, but then I read on Reddit that changing the title of a video once it comes out is the worst thing you can do, because then it stops showing it to people.
Yes.
Because it thinks
I've heard that.
You've heard that, yeah, because it thinks you're like trying to like trick people.
You're right.
So, and then that happened, and then I changed it a second time, and now, ironically, the title that it is right now is the worst title. It's like, what kind of Rooster Teeth merch would you like to see from the new Rooster? It's terrible. It's terrible. So I've just left it alone.
I'm looking at it now. I actually like the thumbnail.
The thumbnail I put a lot of work into.
Merch on there.
Yeah.
That title, you're just not gonna. It does read like a Reddit post.
But seriously though, I think people will like this because, I do think there's a lot of people, without, getting too negative, there's a lot of people who do miss Rooster Teeth and really kind of pine for that era of internet content. And I know I'm, I don't know, what's the opposite of a canary in a coal mine? Like, what's a good version of that? I'm trying to be.
There is no good version.
I guess there's no good version. I'm the one here saying, based off of, I've watched every podcast Bernie's put out about the new Rooster Teeth. The whole focus is to aim for mid 2000s early internet. And I'm really excited to see what that looks like. And I think it will be fun to have videos, one like this with you, where we kind of talk about our favorite stuff that we've seen, because people really, I think, genuinely want to hear Rooster Teeth fans talk about Rooster Teeth stuff in a positive way, where we're not like going over like the Ryan situation for the millionth time. Like, there's a bunch of videos that do that, right? Like, there's no point to like rehash all that.
Just throwing dirt everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. It's like people just want to be able to click on a video that they know they can just put on in the background and have a good time. But I also would love to do videos where I maybe introduce you to new stuff that's coming out, or maybe stuff that you never saw, and kind of get your reaction to some of it. Because I think if basically, you're, like I said, smartest guy I know, also makes you very cynical. So I think if I can get you on board for something, I think maybe that would convince maybe some other people to be like, man, I'll give it a shot.
I can see that, yeah. Obviously, I'd be down for those. We'll see how this one goes. I'm ready for the death threats.
The death threats. It's funny enough. I think I'm more likely to get the death threats at this point.
Yeah, right. They don't know how to reach me, so you're actually going to have a lot of death threats to me sent to you.
Well, I was about to say, I put my Discord out there. I get Discord messages constantly from people who are like, I hope you guys are all right. It'll be like 3:00 in the morning, and I'll get a Discord message like, hey, do you want to talk about Rooster Teeth? And I respond because of course I do. But like, hey, I hope you guys are doing all right. So I guess before we leave, are you comfortable enough with any other subject of Rooster Teeth doing a top 5?
Definitely, probably the stuff that I experience. Like you said, you could introduce me to new stuff. But obviously, if it's something to do with the podcast, I wouldn't be comfortable with that because I just wouldn't have been able to interface with that content as much. But you definitely like a lot of the old Achievement Hunter stuff. Funhouse would be amazing.
So I had a few I was going to throw at you. And you tell me what you think.
Okay.
And this isn't binding. Yeah. It's not binding, but things that I think you would be able to do. Would you think you could pull together a top 5 Minecraft Let's Play?
That'd be tough, but I could probably do it. And it would just be one of those things where it might not be the end-all, be-all top 5. You're going to leave a lot of stuff out.
You're a scientist. It's got to be the end-all, be-all. That's what we're doing here. What about top 5 Funhouse videos?
Maybe I might want to even start more specific, like maybe my favorite demo disc or something like that.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. I think we could even
just sort of narrow it down.
I was about to say even narrow it down to the game, like the demo specifically.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think a fun one would be if we can get the list, maybe we would like coordinate beforehand and we just do together our top 5 like side Rooster Teeth projects, like Social Disorder.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
Because I would love a kind of a list, and I think a lot of people would too. What is the best thing to introduce someone to Rooster Teeth? Because like you can't drop them in with, you know, like 10 little roosters. Like that's 5 layers too deep.
Right.
Like you got to pull back. I think Social Disorder is like a great one to introduce people to.
Right. And it's kind of, kind of removed from having to know anything about Rooster Teeth.
Exactly.
And really it could just be a show you watch on TV, actually.
Well, all right, man. Well, this was good. Do you have any message for the remnants of the Rooster Teeth community?
Try to stay strong. I know it's a tough time out there. You're not eating very well. Famished, really.
I said a message for the community, not for me.
Oh. No, but I also, want to thank you for having me on. I like what you're doing, and, I think a lot of other people like what you're doing, so just keep going at it.
I couldn't believe we were playing video games the other night, and you were like, "Oh yeah, I've watched your videos," and I got real emotional. I was like, "Oh man, Adam watched my videos." I was like, "Well, yeah, I'm doing something right." But then, of course, you started bullying me about what was in the videos, and I was like, "Oh, okay, it was just research." But
you take the good with the bad.
All right, man. Well, this was fun. I can't wait to do the next one.